We continue with our discussion on leadership. Some of the lessons we have learned, number one, is a leader is a man of influence. Number two, that in order for him to have influence, he must be trusted, admired. Because the reason you have influence is because people trust you. Number three, that even if they trust you, if you don't seem to know where we are going, you will soon be dethroned. A leader must be a visionary, somebody who knows where the group should be going. So it's not just enough to have influence. How are you using that influence? You must be somebody who burns the midnight oil to try to understand the subject better than your group, better than your community, so that you can help them with the influence you have to go places. Remember, you are getting the group from their current comfortable zone to an area where they are not sure where it is. They have to trust you, because nobody wants to move from the comfort zone. But if they trust you, they will believe your vision and they'll be willing to sacrifice in order to go there. We are using the Bible to draw lessons from such people in order to learn how we ourselves can become good leaders. And I think that will be something important. We have picked a lady called Phoebe. You know, with only 50 odd words or 2 verses dedicated to her in the whole Bible, you could easily miss this lady Phoebe in your reading of the book of Romans. But that would be a shame, because she's a very important leader in the scriptures. Although few words are given, the ones chosen reveal a woman of faith, a woman who served her church, both spiritually and even served it financially. You know, we need to keep reminding ourselves that the length of our biography does not determine how impactful we were. Length of story or length of years does not measure impact. Maybe you will die at the age of 95, but you'll be surprised that you may not have had the impact that Martin Luther King Jr. had when he died below the age of 40. Because in the short life, from the age 20 to age 39, he was active, using his leadership influence in a positive way. And what he did within that period, even up to today, America and the rest of the world is still feeling the impact of the black leader, Martin Luther King Jr. So you need to understand that. But of course, having known that, it means that if you're a young person, do not sit there waiting to make impact in your 90s. After all, you have not agreed with God how many years he has given you. Make sure in every one of your decade, whether you're in your 20s or your 30s, in your 40s, every decade counts. You can see how your life in that decade has impacted your generation, has impacted your community, you have used your influence, your network, also for the extension of Christian and biblical values. And that will be something that you need to have at the back of your mind as you ask yourself, how is my story? Don't worry how many people and how long the story they can give. But how has your life impacted the people you have come into contact with? They begin with your own children. They begin with your own parents. They begin with your own siblings. Are you a net imbiber or a net giver with the people around you? Do they feel drained by relating with you, or do they feel blessed by relating with you? You see, our families are the place where you begin experimentation of your influence. And you begin at that level. What about your cousins? You have 2 grandfathers, and they are cousins on both from that are for both grandfathers. Big question: how are you influencing them now that you have the same grandfather? And those could be many. All this is part of the story you are supposed to be giving. And you know, one of the interesting things is that God may not give you the privilege of moving outside your village. But if you have the right kind of influence among your cousins, one of your cousins ended up in Japan, another cousin in Australia, another cousin in Europe, and if they have been properly founded with biblical philosophy, biblical principles, they will be taking it elsewhere, and it will have an impact. And the impact is all being traced by this village boy who never went outside the village. So I think the story, the shortness and brevity of the story of Phoebe must remind us that we cannot have influence irrespective of whether we have traveled or not traveled. Because you need to be aware the people you are influencing may not stay where you are. They are likely to go way beyond where you are. I can remember when Martin Luther King died in 1968. One of my teachers was a black American in high school. I was in high school. And he came to the parade ground and said, yesterday, our icon, our leader, has died. I didn't even know who Martin Luther King was at that point. But a whole tall, big American, black American, cried tears because of the death of Martin Luther. Thousands of miles away from America, in Kenya, this man was using the influence he got from Martin Luther in order to influence me. And in the process, I've also had my journey. So you need to understand clearly. Don't feel limited by how far you travel. Don't feel limited by how many people are around you. Invest properly in them, and you'll see your influence spread. You know, this lady Phoebe served the church, so we are told. Phoebe served this church with how? I think part of it was acts of charity or hospitality. She was a person who would comfort, would assist many in the church, and that included Paul. She had a business, yes, and she sometimes traveled in her business. Perhaps she was well off, it sounds like. But that is not what she was commended for. She was commended for being a servant and comforter of God's saints. And I think that's one of the things that you'll understand as a leader. Your leadership may come from being simply empathetic. Somebody who is able to place yourself in other people's shoes, feeling the pain of others, comforting them, or being accessible. People are able to hear you. People are able to come to you because you are accessible. You have a listening ear. And that will give you a chance to say something that will bring a transformation in the other person and may make him go places you yourself will never go. Do you see it like that? Or are you the type of a leader who, whenever somebody comes to your office, you are too busy and you keep talking, but he can see you're not concentrating. You have no interest in him. And he feels like you don't value him. My friend, if you are Phoebe, you will be somebody who stops for a while just to listen to the person and then seek the mind of God to help you, so that the reply you give is a reply that gives comfort, gives guidance, helps the person to move from where they are stuck, help them to be unstuck and move on in whatever the issue they are doing. You know, your leadership may come from being simply a person, a people person, they are called, somebody who listens. You may not be that competent. You know the three C's. The three C's you require in leadership: competence, character, and chemistry. And you know, competence, some people may be very competent, but they don't have character. So you can't trust them. So you can't follow them. But some people have competence and character, but have no chemistry. You don't feel confident to talk to them. You don't feel like they care about you. So you have no chemistry with them. So you can't go to them. You'd rather go to somebody else who is not as gifted, who is not as competent. So you need to understand that in leadership, the chemistry, ability to deal with the people, ability to hear people will be something that is going to help you. And as it helps you, it's going to give you a chance to be a new person who is going to bring a change within them, within society. And that will be something that helps. You know, let's go back to Romans chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. I commend to you our sister Phoebe, a deacon of the church of Cenchrea. I also ask you to receive her in the Lord in a way worthy of his people, and to give her any help she may need from you, for she has been the benefactor of many people, including me. Wow. I wish that was being said about me. That the great Apostle Paul recognizes that when he was in that church, this was a very special lady. Remember, she is visiting Rome, the capital of the empire. And the church in Rome is being told to treat her like the great leader she was, with respect. Paul is writing to the Romans, not where she came from, but where she was going. And because he has sent her with, maybe he's the one carrying the letter of Romans, he trusted her enough to give her that message and wanted her to be well received when she actually got to Rome. My friend, is your localized ministry in the village, in your town, being done in such a way that will take you places to the capital? Your ministry can even be just a trusted messenger of the apostles. So, but they began from trust. Ability to be trusted with little is what gives her the big job of being sent to the capital city as a missionary to actually deliver Paul's letter. And she's going to a place that Paul has never been himself, because he had not been to Rome before he wrote the letter of Romans. So, do you have a ministry in your localized area that is blessing enough people so that somebody may want to use you to be a speaker, to be a minister to another group, either near or far? Or the way you are treating the people around you, they can never commend you to go and help elsewhere. So you are doomed to only be a leader of a small group. But if you are a leader for that small group effectively, that's where you get the recommendation to go to a bigger group. And that will be something that will be very useful. You know, in this short passage, or in the book of Acts, that cover our friend Phoebe, Paul refers to her both as a deacon and as a patron, or whatever you call a benefactor of many, including, he admits himself. She is the only woman in the Bible to be described as being both of this: a patron, benefactor, and a deacon. I think that's a very important thing to understand. Some people think that if you're a deacon, you have a big title, that's enough. She does more than just be a deacon. She was an administrator in the church. At least that's what deacons were. There were people who served the tables. But she was also a benefactor to the group. So I'm asking, can you be both? Can you do your administrative work as a leader and still be friendly with others? Can you do your job description and still be seen to be doing that description, plus you are an important friend to people. Can you be friendly with your subordinates such that they can relate with you not as their boss, but as a person they would like to live with? You know, I happen to be chairman of our pension association. I used to work for a multinational company. And so all of us who work there have formed an organization for pensioners. And one of the things that has come out is, as we talk about this, is that we are together. When we are electing leaders, you're not elected because you are a manager. You are elected because they trust you. So here we are. Nobody is the boss of the other. Some have been retired for 20 years. Some have retired 30 years. The other day we were giving a special clap for all who have been retired for 30 years. These are people in their 80s, in their 90s. We now don't look at titles you had. It is, were you somebody I can trust? And those are the people we give responsibility in the leadership of the pension association. Let me ask you, as a manager, as a leader, do people see you as a friend? Are you, when they're finally handed over, are they likely to want to lead in the cattle dip in your area or whatever, as an old man when you're retired? Again, the 3 C's. Do they see you as competent? That whatever you are given to do, you do it with diligence? Do they see you as somebody they can trust? You have character. But most importantly, if they are the ones to elect, they must agree with your chemistry. You must be able to relate well with them. You must be accessible. Can that be true of you? That's what this woman was. A deacon, yes, but more than that, a benefactor, somebody who helped people, somebody who used her wealth, whether great or small, in order to help people in the church. And no wonder she is now being selected to take the message and to visit Rome, maybe on behalf of Paul. You know, what I then understand is, even if you are a leader, you must be a people person. You must help wherever there is need, whoever is in need, not just where you have a title. Don't just use your title. Be just a friend to anybody and everybody. As God gives you enablement, that will multiply your influence. That will mean that the biblical values you are trying to pass to your workmates, to your employees, are going to go places. If you don't have this chemistry, chances are they will not take your Christianity seriously. They will not take your biblical message seriously. You wonder why nobody follows the church, and yet you are a pastor. You never wonder why people don't come, and yet you are a Christian. And you are their boss. It's because they don't have chemistry with you. I think that will be something that is important. You know, the Greek term used here for deacon is diakonos, I'm told by those who know Greek. What is confusing is that the word itself can be translated in 2 different ways. Either as a Christian designated to serve with the overseer of the church, that's a deacon. He assists the overseer. Or, more generally, you could be actually just a servant, the servant of the church, who could also be somebody who holds spiritual authority or somebody who doesn't. Interestingly, whenever this word is referring to a man in Paul's writings, it has unequivocally been translated as minister of the gospel. But the people find it wondering whether you can use the word minister when it is a lady. But let's be clear that this lady was a minister. So for the church not to have women leaders, they are not following the what we see in this church. And you know, to use her to go all the way to Rome and write to the Romans about her as a leader, a deacon, a minister. It meant Paul knew there was a role for women to play within the church of Jesus Christ. And I think that's one of the things that will be important. At home, my understanding of the scriptures, when you're at home, the man is the head of the home. That's what the scriptures say. But there's nothing in the scriptures that tells you in employment that your boss cannot be a woman. The fact that she is a boss on the activity you are doing does not stop her being the wife she is at home. I'm told the Queen of England is a housewife to the late Prince Philip. And they had been married for more than 60 years, close to 70, to about 70 years before the husband died. And she is able to play her role as a mother of his children, as a wife. But when it comes to public office, he just stands there. All the work is being done by the lady as a queen of the Commonwealth. Now, that's one of the things that we in leadership will have to learn. How to play different roles in different places. Some women get confused and they think that now that they are CEO of a business, they come and treat the husband like one of the subordinates. You'll be contradicting the scriptures. Your husband remains the head of the home. And you need to understand you play different roles in different places. You may be a CEO at work, but then one of your messengers, very junior, happens to be with a gift of ministry. So when you come to church, he is the one preaching. He is not your boss. He is the minister of the gospel. To have difficulty listening to that message because it's your messenger preaching just tells you have a problem. You don't understand the different roles in different circumstances. And I think this lady, who is described officially as a minister of the gospel, should teach us about being different things in different places. That there are places where we should not be talking. You know, you even have people who are in a strange place where their role in the office is not counted. And they keep, do you know me? Do you know who I am? I am the CEO of such and such. It's irrelevant. We can enjoy our fellowship and our discussion. Unless, of course, there has something to do with your work. We don't have to know that you are a professor in your place of work, which is called a university. Because where we are not your students. So you are being a professor is of no value. Okay, you are a bishop in your church, but if you are having a meeting, like now I was saying the pensioners meeting, or old schoolmates meeting, what you are in your place of work, in your church, is of no consequence. And I think that's how our sister Phoebe is able to play her role well, because she understands who she is in different places. And I think that's what every leader, whoever you are, needs to understand. And I pray that that's something you will play. Because anybody who is able to do that will have gained influence in different places. Do you know when you come carrying your weight in a place where the weight is not needed, your chemistry becomes a problem. People no longer feel they want to be with you. They see pride. And pride comes before a fall. Nobody wants to relate with somebody proud. And the moment they don't relate with you, it draws down your influence, your leadership ability, and the ability of transforming the community you happen to be in. So may God help us not to have pride in our titles, not to have pride in where we work or what we do, but to simply see that's a job to be done. The message has a job to do, the CEO has a job to do, we are workmates. And in the process, we have no difficulty relating with the message. Like I told you, in our pension association, you will find the messenger is the one who is the leader in the association. The CEO has to listen. The former CEO has to listen. And we have no difficulty when people don't start bringing external things to a place they are not actually required. Good leadership is that ability to know where you are when, and what hat to wear where, and then be therefore in every situation somebody whose chemistry is something that's going on with the people they are with. And I think that will be something that will be very, very important. You know, it's most likely Paul entrusted Phoebe, maybe with others, not Phoebe alone, to travel to Rome and deliver this particular letter of Romans to the church there. You know, the letter of Romans is said to be one that must be read by anybody who wants to understand the Bible. Because Paul was writing to people he had never dealt with. And so it's theologically speaking, it's a very well done letter. So, and that's what he uses a woman to deliver. This implies that he trusted and valued this leader called Phoebe, both because of her character, maybe because of her competence. He recommends her to the Roman church in the same way that he did a gentleman called Tychicus, Colossians 4, verse 7 to 9, and another gentleman called Epaphroditus, Philippians 2:25. They are men, leaders. They don't get any better commendation than the woman leader. She was seen as a powerful and strong person carrying authority as a trusted messenger of the great apostle Paul. And I'm asking you similarly, can you be that level? Remember, that level of trust by Paul did not come to everybody. It is the way you live your life. Number one, the way you carry your duties. Number two, and the way you relate with the people that will give you that kind of influence to be trusted with the ministries of all kinds. So your impact on earth will relate with those three and what you do with them. You know, the organization will be the poorer if it ignores people like Phoebe, even if they happen to be women. So you need to ask yourself as a leader, is there a class of people who could be improving your organization, your transformation, the good of the group, but because you look down on them, they are too young, they are feminine, or they are not as educated, something is causing you to ignore them. Paul was not like that. And see the kind of impact Paul ended up having as a leader of leaders. And Phoebe reminds us that Paul was inclusive, not exclusive. And he was not a respecter of persons. He looked at people's competence and their character and their chemistry and used anybody and everybody. And that was quite useful. You know, women were involved in leadership in church during the New Testament. Phoebe is not the only one. But whether or not Phoebe held the office of deacon, it is clear that God was using her to spread the good news. She was a minister. Whether she was a minister by title or just servant, she was influencing people for the kingdom. And that will be something very important. You know, God puts his followers in families. And I think that's why Paul refers to Phoebe as our sister. We are so familiar with this terminology that it is easy to miss the significance. She was his sister in Christ, and therefore a member of both his and the Roman spiritual family. Is that what you do? Do you get where you see fellow believers as your sisters, as your brothers? As we follow Jesus, we are invited to a family, a biblical Christian family with our believers. The family is one of hospitality and generosity, as shown by Paul's command to the Romans to welcome this lady, Phoebe, in the Lord, in a way worthy of a Christian. Although they are yet to meet this lady, the Roman Christians are to welcome Phoebe as a sister, for they are part of the same family. And it will be important that every leader sees their followers as part and parcel of their family. That way you are a family that's going places. Thank you very much.